Good morning, everybody. Panoramic view, how we can use it for strategic advantage in our life, in the organization we work. That would be the topic of my talk today. I thought it would be appropriate, as it is linked very well with the theme of this TEDx. 30 years of my career, I worked with 3 Centurions. Each of this organization, they are over 100 years old. And each of them been through number of transformation throughout their journey. And even today, all of them kept themselves as relevant as they were in their prime time. So what makes this organization remain that successful? Each of these companies were working across boundaries. They work in a very competitive and very complex environment. Global organization, working in hundreds of countries, in number of continents, with diverse cultural and ethical environment, makes it so hard for them to work in one common way, makes it very, very challenging for the organization. So what happens in these companies, I always wondered that how some companies are very successful and some others are not so successful. Why some leaders, they excel, while others, they fail. Why some of us as employees are highly motivated while others are not. Each of these companies, they had to work with an agility of a speedboat while they were turning this big ship all around time and again. And I was fortunate to be part of many such transformation journey to experience firsthand that what makes some people succeed while others fail. And I always wondered this. I found the answer 6,500 kilometers away from here in the jungles of Africa. In 1984, when first time the movie Lion King came, I was fascinated with Africa and its wildlife. Some years back, I went to Africa for a vacation, just to see and experience the wildlife from the front. Like many tourists, I also bought a camera with a long lens so that I can take pictures from the close end. While I was entering the forest in Maasai Mara in Kenya, I found it so wonderful. Thousands and thousands of gazelles, deers of different types, rhinos, zebras, elephants are roaming around alongside their predators. Cheetahs, hyenas, lions. But they were all there together. And then I wondered, is this the best way to live? Because some of these animals, like antelopes, they're living with their predators. In fact, I saw a cheetah hunting an antelope, a deer. And I saw that how this cheetah, after hunting, was feeding their cubs. I also saw how lions, they hunt as a gang, in a group. They hunt zebras and they hunt wildebeests. I saw hyenas hunting baby deers. They could barely walk. Looking at this entire scenario made me very sad. I came back to my tent that evening, and I was sitting next to the campfire, and I was wondering, did I spend my money on the right thing? Why I had to spend money to come here to see this devastating killing of beautiful, innocent animals? And I was talking to a local that evening, and I said, look, it doesn't feel good. I am very, very sad today. And that Maasai sat next to me and tried to explain. One thing he said was very important, that when you see something from very close, you don't see the full picture. He taught me that evening how these animals, they work in perfect harmony, how these various species help each other to survive. In fact, he taught me that if the predators don't eat antelopes, like deers and all, there will not be any human being. This ecosystem keeps our earth habitable for us and for other species. He actually took a long time to explain. And then I remember the famous line from the movie Lion King, the circle of life. Each of us need others. The next day, he took me to the forest again, and he was showing me the wonderful landscape of Maasai Mara. He pointed towards a huge herd of zebras alongside wildebeests roaming around. And he explained that why, wherever in Africa you will see zebras, you will find wildebeests walking along with them. He taught me that both these species, they eat grass, but they eat in a very different way. He told me that the zebras, they eat the tall grasses, and wildebeest, they follow them to munch on the smaller ones. They won't be able to eat the smaller grasses which they need if there are no zebras eating the tall grasses. And that was something very, very interesting. I came back from Africa and I carried certain lessons for my life. I realized that in today's world, in organizations, also in our society, we need to collaborate, even to compete. We cannot stay apart from each other's. We need a lot of parts of the ecosystem to live our life. And that was a big learning. Most of the time, what happens, we miss the wood for the trees. So when we look things from the close corner, we perhaps miss the bigger picture, which is panoramic view. People at the top of the organization, people who are higher ups, they have better view of the situation. And one of their job is to help others connecting the dot, to give the right perspective. Seeing things from a vantage point is what I call is panoramic view. Then I realized that people who has that larger vision can understand the larger landscape, can actually help others down the line to connect the dot and help them to motivate themselves to achieve a common goal. Because my learning from these large corporates were, well, you go through these transformations, what is extremely, extremely challenging was to carry the people along, carry the people with you from diverse culture, diverse ethnic background, and in different countries, under different regulatory system, so on and so forth. Let me ask you a question. What do you do? Or what do you want to do in life? Think about it. You don't need to give the answer. Store it here in your head. We'll circle back at the end. Again, asking you a question, what do you do? Or what do you want to do? Okay? Think about it. This what do you do is a very 21st century question. You perhaps cannot meet somebody, socially or otherwise, for over 15 minutes till somebody asks you, what do you do? Why people ask that? I wonder. Because they try to judge you socially where you belong by the work you do, which college you study, what kind of things you learn, right? This is a very 21st century phenomenon. And we do answer. But perhaps we don't give the impression to the other party that what we actually are inside. As a person, you don't get to know me if you just ask me, what do you do? And I just say, I'm so and so, and this is what I do for living. Let's begin with a question. This is a picture of a network operations center. The organization I work, we manage large-scale networks all across the world. Billions of mobile connection goes through this network operating center. We monitor all the towers, all the base stations to ensure that the network is up and running, all the mobile phones you are using today. All your connection goes through this NOC, what we call Network Operations Center. And a typical NOC will look like this. Boys and girls are sitting in front of multiple monitors and monitoring the health of the network. At times, the job is not very interesting. Number of times I talk to different people working there and try to understand what do they do. Same question. People tell me that I am monitoring a network. I am managing a network. I am managing a connectivity. Often I found that people who are doing this work are challenged with motivation at times. Of course, you are sitting in front of 6 terminals, 8 hours a day, 24/7, and you are looking at some static figures. Normally, they don't change a lot. There will be a yellow blip, turns into a red blip if there is a problem. Otherwise, you are just sitting there and looking at it. So it's not very highly motivating work. But then I explain to my people that that's one way of looking and answering that what do you do is I'm monitoring the network or I monitor the network. The other way to say, if I were you, I would say I save people's life. I am saving people's life. I am making this society to run the way it runs today. Because why? countries like India, the mobile communication is perhaps the only communication available in 80% of our land. And in some village, in some remote part of the country, if somebody is trying to take care of their ailing parents, the only way he or she can reach to a doctor or call for an ambulance is a mobile phone. So look at it. When you look at the screen, you think that if you keep all the dots green, you are saving people's life every night. You are not just looking at the monitor and managing a network. You are helping business to operate in this country. Without mobile phone, there is no Uber business. And I can talk on and on and on by giving example. We are helping to run the economy. That's how we should look at ourselves. That's how we should motivate ourselves when we sit in front of those dumb terminals. That's another way of looking at it. When we started working with a software for mobile money, in Ghana, today, there are millions of users of mobile money. What happens there, that people get robbed for keeping money and there are no banks in vicinity. For going to bank once a week you can afford, you'll have to walk for miles, you have to take bus and other transport, and on your way you will get robbed. If you keep the money at home, you will get robbed. And that used to be the situation till we delivered this mobile money solution. And now, everybody makes payment using these wallets. And it saved people's life. It saves them from being robbed. It reduced the crime rate. So when we were developing the software, if we would have looked at, okay, we are going to write thousands of lines of C++ code, it is something to motivate us, rather than saying that what we are going to do today is going to save people's life tomorrow. That gives a different perspective. And that brings me to this word called purpose. We'll have to put a purpose behind everything we do. I traveled to Rome. And while I was traveling, I got introduced to the work of Michelangelo. And Michelangelo was the very best architect, sculptor, painter, and poet who contributed the most in the Western Renaissance. And I wondered that what made Michelangelo so special, so successful. After returning to my place, I started thinking and I started reading. And then I realized that it is about his ability to put a purpose to the work he was doing made him so special. So he said things like that every marble has an angel inside. My job is to keep digging till I make the angel free. He looked at it from that perspective. And in Italy, I also visited a number of places. This is a picture from my visit to Pisa's Leaning Tower. And that, out there, I heard this wonderful story of three masons, these three workers. They were cutting stones to create bricks or blocks to make building. So once somebody was passing by and asked these masons that what they were doing. The person asked the first guy that what are you doing? He said, can't you see? I am just cutting stone. Okay, so he moved to the next guy. He seems a little more interesting, and then he was putting a lot of focus on his work. And the guy asked the same question. What are you doing? He said, look, I come from a distant village. I need money. I'm working here, trying to do a good job so that I can earn some money. I'm going back to my family as soon as I make money. And then the guy moved on and asked the third mason. He was putting 200% focus on his work. He was chipping off the small pieces from the stone, stepping back, looking at it, and trying to do the best job he could. So the guy asked the third person, or the third mason as well, what are you doing? He looked at the sky and took a deep breath and said, I am building a cathedral. That's a very common story. You perhaps heard it before. Three people doing the same thing, three different answers. Because one guy could put the right purpose behind it. So I realized that yes, if you have the right purpose, it actually not only helps you in terms of motivating to deliver your best, but it also allows you to do work in the right way. So coming back to my question, that what do you do? Or what you want to do? Now think back what you thought when I asked the question for the first time. It's always better to put a right purpose behind what we do. Because to me, that's not important. The purpose is more important. So my realization from all these three large corporates I work for and my life's learning by meeting different people, the companies, the leaders, and the individuals who are successful, or those who are successful, are the people who can bring the purpose and help others to join the dots and explain why they do what they do. So I end by saying, try to find your vantage point and go there and perhaps take a panoramic view to find your purpose. You will always see the outcome is much better. Thank you very much for your time.